I've been around a lot of talented players. I got to take a lot of things from different players that I really liked.
Brandon Xavier Ingram, born September 2nd, 1997. The truth about Brandon Ingram is he's one of the most fascinating players in the NBA because on paper, he checks almost every box you'd want in a franchise cornerstone. He was the second overall pick in the draft, entered the league with comparisons to Kevin Durant, has the length, shot creation, scoring ability, and natural talent that organizations dream about. Over the years, he's made 2 All-Star teams, signed max contracts, and repeatedly been handed opportunities to prove he could be the face of a franchise. Yet, after a decade in the NBA, something still doesn't quite add up. Despite all the expectations, Brandon Ingram has never truly established himself as the player a championship team can be built around. That's not meant as disrespect because he's had an excellent career and has been one of the league's most gifted scorers for years. But there's a difference between being an all-star and being the guy. The player teams naturally rally behind, the one who sets the tone for an organization, and the one every decision revolves around. For whatever reason, every team that has tried to hand Brandon Ingram those keys has eventually found someone else to drive the franchise forward. It happened in Los Angeles, it happened in New Orleans, and we saw the conversation begin again in Toronto. So the question isn't whether Brandon Ingram is talented, because he clearly is. The real question is why someone with so much talent, so many opportunities, and so much belief from NBA organizations has never become the franchise player everyone expected. What happened? Let's talk about it. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth. Let's get it, man. Like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know who I should do next. Brandon Ingram is a 6'8" forward from Kinston, North Carolina. Even before he reached the NBA, he was viewed as one of the most gifted young scorers in the country. After starring at Kinston High School and becoming a McDonald's All-American, he committed to Duke, where his smooth offensive game immediately drew attention. In his lone college season, Ingram averaged 17.3 points, 6.8 rebounds, and 2 assists while helping lead the Blue Devils to the Sweet 16. What made scouts fall in love wasn't just the production, but how effortless everything looked. His long frame, high release point, shot creation, and ability to score from all 3 levels reminded many of another lanky forward who had entered the league nearly a decade earlier, Kevin Durant. While those comparisons were always ambitious, they followed Ingram throughout the draft process and helped cement him as the consensus second best prospect in the 2016 NBA draft, behind only Ben Simmons. The LA Lakers selected him 2nd overall, believing they had found the next superstar to build around after Kobe Bryant's retirement. Although his rookie season was inconsistent, his potential was obvious, and by his 3rd year he had developed into one of the league's brightest young players. After being included in the blockbuster Anthony Davis trade, Ingram arrived in New Orleans with a fresh start and immediately earned his first All-Star appearance along with the NBA's most improved player. From that point on, he became a 2-time All-Star, signed max contracts, and was repeatedly viewed as a franchise cornerstone. On paper, everything was unfolding exactly as expected, but as the years went on, the expectations surrounding Brandon Ingram and the reality of what he became slowly started to drift apart. Stunt number 1, he was never built to be a franchise leader. This may be the hardest part of Brandon Ingram's career for people to accept because it has nothing to do with his talent. Talent has never been the issue. He's one of the smoothest scorers in basketball, can create his own shot against almost anyone, and has all the physical tools scouts dream about. But being a franchise player requires more than putting points on the board. It requires a certain presence. The best number 1 options naturally become the emotional and competitive center of their teams. Whether loud leaders like Kevin Garnett, relentless workers like Kobe Bryant, or quieter personalities like Tim Duncan and Kawhi Leonard, teammates know exactly who the organization belongs to. Brandon Ingram has never really given off that feeling. Throughout his career, he's always come across as quiet, laid back, and content to simply play basketball. There's nothing wrong with that personality, but it doesn't always translate to leading an entire franchise. I know some people will immediately point to Kawhi Leonard and say, well, he's quiet too. That's true, but Kawhi's situation is very different. He entered one of the greatest basketball cultures ever created, surrounded by Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and Greg Popovich. He wasn't expected to become the face of the Spurs overnight. By the time he did, he had already established himself as arguably the best two-way player in basketball. Brandon Ingram never reached that level. From the moment he entered the league, teams wanted him to become the centerpiece. They wanted him to be the player everyone followed, and that's a responsibility that extends far beyond scoring 25 points a night. That's why I believe the Kevin Durant comparisons actually hurt Brandon Ingram more than they helped him. People weren't just comparing their games, they were comparing their futures. Durant eventually became one of the greatest scorers the NBA has ever seen, and someone every organization was comfortable building around. Ingram inherited those expectations before he ever played an NBA game. The reality is that he's always looked much more comfortable as an elite complementary star than the player every decision revolves around. That's not a knock on his ability, it's simply recognizing that leading a franchise and being talented enough to play for one are two completely different things. Stunt number 2, his production never matched the responsibility. If there's one thing Brandon Ingram has consistently done throughout his career, it's put up numbers. Since becoming an all-star in New Orleans, averaging over 20 points a game has almost become expected. He can score from all 3 levels, create difficult shots in isolation, and when he's healthy, there aren't many defenders who can completely take him out of a game. On the surface, that's exactly what you would want from the player you're building around. But once you look past the box score, a different question starts to emerge. Have Brandon Ingram's teams ever actually played like teams built around a true franchise player? The answer, more often than not, has been no. His highest scoring season came in 22-23 when he averaged a career-best 24.7 points per game. Impressive on paper, but New Orleans finished 44-40, lost in the play-in tournament, and never seriously looked like a championship threat. Even the year before, when the Pelicans reached the playoffs, they were ultimately a first-round exit. Throughout Ingram's prime, New Orleans has consistently found itself fighting just to get in the postseason, rather than competing near the top of the Western Conference. Again, that isn't entirely his fault. Basketball is a team sport. Rosters matter, injuries matter, coaching matters, but if you're going to be viewed as the centerpiece of an organization, fair or not, winning eventually becomes part of your evaluation. That's where I think Brandon Ingram's game creates a difficult dilemma. He's an excellent scorer, but he doesn't dominate games in a way that elevates everyone around him. He isn't the offensive engine that Nikola Jokic is, he doesn't alter defenses like Steph Curry, and he doesn't pressure the rim every possession like Giannis. Even someone like Shea has a relentless downhill style that constantly forces defenses to react. Ingram's game is much more methodical. He'll get to his spots, hit difficult mid-range shots, and quietly put together an efficient 27-point night. But those performances don't always translate into making the entire team better offensively. That's the difference between an all-star and a franchise player. One can have outstanding individual seasons, the other changes the identity of an entire organization. Brandon Ingram has proven he can score with almost anyone in the league. What he hasn't consistently proven is that his style of play is enough to carry a franchise where it ultimately wants to go. Stunt number 3, someone else always becomes the guy. To me, this is the strongest evidence that Brandon Ingram was never meant to be a franchise player. It's not based on one season, one coach, or one organization. It's a pattern that's followed him throughout his entire NBA career. Every team that's tried to hand Brandon Ingram the keys has eventually come to the same realization. He's an outstanding player to have, but not the player you build everything around. It started with the Lakers. When they drafted him 2nd overall in 2016, the hope was that he'd become the face of the franchise after Kobe Bryant's retirement. He was given every opportunity to develop into that player, and to his credit, he's improved every single season, from 9 to 16 to 18 points per game. But the moment LeBron James became available, there wasn't much debate about who the Lakers wanted leading the organization. Brandon Ingram wasn't viewed as untouchable. Instead, he became the centerpiece of the Anthony Davis trade package because Los Angeles believed LeBron was their franchise player, not Ingram. Then came New Orleans, where Brandon finally received what many people felt was needed. He became an all-star, signed a max contract, and for a while it looked like the Pelicans had found their cornerstone. But as the years passed, it became increasingly clear that the organization saw Zion Williamson as the player it truly wanted to build around. Even with Zion's injuries, when he was available, the offense, the marketing, and the future of the franchise all revolved around him. Brandon Ingram remained an excellent player, but he increasingly looked like the second piece instead of the foundation. Then we saw it with the Raptors, where Scottie Barnes became the franchise player over Ingram once again. Now he's reached the Clippers, and I think the same lesson applies. Brandon Ingram is joining a team that already knows exactly who its leaders are. He isn't being asked to become the face of the franchise, he's being asked to make a talented team even better. And honestly, I think that's where he'll thrive. Put him next to an established star, let him score efficiently without carrying the emotional and organizational weight of an entire franchise, and suddenly everything makes much more sense. Because that's the truth about Brandon Ingram. He's not a player you build around, he's a player you build with. And those are two very different things. All in all, I think the truth about Brandon Ingram is pretty simple. For years, NBA teams have looked at his size, scoring ability, draft pedigree, and natural talent and convinced themselves they had a franchise player. On paper, it's easy to understand why. Players with his combination of length and shot creation don't come around very often. But after 10 years in the league, I think we've seen enough to know who Brandon Ingram really is. Not a disappointment, not a bust, not an overrated player, just someone who's been asked to be something he never truly was meant to be. To me, Brandon Ingram is one of the best second options in basketball. Put him next to an established superstar like Ja Morant, Shea, Tyrese Halliburton, Steph Curry, or another unquestioned leader, and I think his true value immediately goes up. Suddenly, he's no longer responsible for carrying the culture, setting the tone, or leading an entire organization. He can simply do what he's always done at an elite level, put the ball in the basket. There's nothing wrong with that role either. Every championship team needs players like Brandon Ingram. The mistake has simply been expecting him to be the guy, when his greatest strength has always been playing next to one. Salute, much respect, but for these reasons, his growth is being stunted. It's your boy JC Stunted Growth, and I'm out.